welcome to this little mini series on developing our intuition, working with tarot and working with oracle cards and other intuitive tools. I am your host, Jen Plotnikoff, and today I want to give you a couple little tips. Previously, if you want to know a little bit more about oracle cards versus tarot cards, I did a video on that, so watch that. This video, I want to kind of deep dive a little bit about how to get away from using the book all the time. So if you have an oracle deck, if you have a tarot deck, you know that it comes with this nifty little guidebook, which is super helpful. However, as you start to do different readings and all that kind of stuff, and if you kind of want to go deeper and, let's face it, actually work with these tools in the way that, I don't know, I think that, you know, maximize their potential. You know, especially we're gonna work with oracle today, and we'll do another video as well on, there'll be a video equivalent with giving you some tips and tricks with tarot. But what I want to talk about is, here are a couple of different ways that you can work with symbolism, work with different oracle decks. No matter what kind of deck, I'm going to use this particular one just because it happens to be in front of me. No affiliation with this producer or artist, but I'm going to be just using this Oracle of the Seven Energies by Colette Baron Reed deck. We're just going to use this as an example, right, of different ways that I might work with or use this deck. Now, one of the things that I mentioned when it came to like oracle versus tarot, and I think this is where oracle, yeah, again, I did a whole thing on that, but oracle cards tend to be, because they're created from whatever the creator wanted them to be, they tend to be a lot more tied to this book and the interpretation that the author has in mind for the book. But it's not, it's a great place to start, but it can actually be so much deeper. And even if you're someone who's just brand new at this, even if you're someone, and if you're not, you might be more advanced, but I think that there is a lot more depth that we can get from these cards. So I wanted to kind of share with you some of, like, just a little bit about my approach to how I might read a card, and then give you an example of how, and of course, again, this is just one example. Like, you can extrapolate this and plug it into your own reflective practice however you'd like. Like, some people like to pull a card and then do a meditation on it. Some people like to pull a card and then do some journaling on it. So regardless, my personal process, I like to write, and I like to write in a journal. I'm a physical writer. And I also have been doing intuitive readings, tarot, and Akashic Records work professionally for many years. And I've also been doing this for fun and curiosity for even longer. So that's just a little bit about where I'm coming from. But these are some thoughts, okay? So first of all, the very first tip that I have is, regardless of whatever card it is you pull, and even if you want to read the book, my first and foremost tip is to read the book part last, okay? Read the book part last. And this is important because when you are doing this, and if you're wanting to do this in terms of helping or trying to understand how this card might be affecting you on a personal level, I think it's important to actually work at the personal approach. The book is written in a general reading approach, right? This person is reading for the whole population with this card. But the question or the thing that might be on your heart and mind for right now might not be connected to the whole collective. I mean, there might be some things there that are helpful, which is why we'll get to that in a bit. But first and foremost, the question to ask is, how is this affecting me on a personal level? What is the information maybe that I'm missing? What are the things that I maybe want to know? And so the very first thing before we even pull the card is, what is our intention, or what is our question, right? So if you do this as a daily practice, so maybe you're working on developing your intuition, and a really great practice to do is just pull a card every day and write a little bit about it, and write about what it might mean to you and how it might be of service to you or whatever. So you can just say, what do I need to know today? That can be a question. If you want deeper information on something and that's maybe weighing on your mind or heart for the day, for the week, in life in general, right? Be clear about your question. What do I need to know about X, Y, Z situation, right? So I might pull a card for a particular thing. I might pull, for example, I recently pulled a card for the equinox, the fall equinox, and I wanted to know about what the themes were for me. My birth is actually follows the equinox in a few weeks. And so for me, that's kind of an important time for me. This is kind of an important time in my life. I always find it's kind of like my own personal new year rather than January. For me, it usually comes in the fall. And so I wanted to know information about that. So that's an example, right? So for this particular reading, I'm actually going to pull a card and kind of work with myself as an example. Let's just pick a particular and clear question. So it might just be, what do I need to know right now about the audience for this series, this video series I'm doing? Let's ask about that, right? So in this video series, what do I need to know about my audience, the people who might be watching this right now? And so you can shuffle, however, we'll talk about the mechanics of it, but really, in my experience, it does not matter how you shuffle. It does not matter how you choose. There's millions of different ways. Just pick one. It's not that important. Trust whatever you need to hear will come to you. So the Oracle's gift. So this is a card. So for me in particular, I'm going to look at what are the things that really jump out at me, right? So interestingly enough, it's so interesting. The number, it's actually number 37, but when I first saw it, it looked like number 17. And there's this little string and little teacup that made me think about the star card in the tarot. And so I do work with tarot. So work with what you have. If you don't work with tarot, that's okay, right? But for me, I might look a little bit deeper into the star card and what the star card means for me when it comes to tarot, because for some reason, when I first looked at this card, it really reminded me of the image of the star card in tarot. So maybe there is some additional kind of deep diving I can look at in looking at that card and the meaning of that card. So what else is jumping out to me? I'm going to show you it, but I'm going to have a look at it myself. So the other thing that's jumping out to me is in the card, there are these rose petals that are falling out of the cup. And for me on a personal level, the rose is a really important symbol that has come up for me in a recent reading that I did for myself. So I'm going to actually look back at that reading and look back at my notes. It's kind of like a reminder. And whenever I get these little reminders, that was a pretty major theme reading for me. Whenever I get these little reminders referring back to kind of major themes and major readings, I'm going to go, okay, this is obviously grabbing my attention for a reason. So let's kind of go back to that theme that I wrote about. Maybe I forgot about it. Maybe it's something I need to come back to. And the other thing that is holding my attention here is kind of this triangle fire kind of symbol. I don't know if you guys can see that. And it connected to rose, right? And so for me, what rose, and I mean, here's the thing that's really, really important that I really want to relay, is that the rose can be a symbol of a lot of different things, okay? What I'm about to say is my own personal connection to this symbolism as per my actual personal life circumstances. And this is why it's really, really, really important because a rose to somebody else might mean something totally different. So this is where I'm not going to go on the internet and look up what does rose petals mean or what does a fiery triangle mean. I'm not going to do that. Just like I can look at this book, and we will look at the book in a moment, but I'm not going to immediately go there. I'm going to look at the rose petals and what do they mean to me. Now, maybe they bring my attention, but I don't have anything in mind. Like for me, my mind thinks a lot in symbology. And so for me, these symbols, because of my own studies, have a lot of significant meaning to me. This particular triangle really is symbolic for me as the female pelvis, the womb, the place of creativity, as well as the place of creation. So for me, who's someone who studied embryology, this is really a place of like origins and our origins. And it's really pointing to me to a big theme that's happening for me personally in kind of deep diving into an additional layer into my own understanding of embryology, right? So, and it talks about the oracle's gift. So for me, that has been a really major theme, and it has been an energy that has really led me through my life. It's been kind of my own inner compass, so to speak, right? So to me, this card is very much connected to the star card and connected to the personal reading that I have done very recently. And so here's a couple tips. So say I'm drawn to the rose petals, right? So there's maybe something, let's say I didn't have all this information and experience, right? Because you might be like, oh, like I'm new at this, right? The other thing is think about what this imagery, first of all, what grabs your attention, right? So let's say the rose grabs your attention. The rose petals is the first thing that grabs your attention. If you don't have context for what rose means to you, right? And this can be anything. Maybe your favorite grandmother, her name is Rose, right? Maybe you have an affinity for the plant. Maybe you have affinity for roses. Maybe they're your favorite flower, right? If you don't have any of those things and you go, well, why am I being drawn to the rose petals? I don't understand. Rather than fighting and, just trust the rose petals mean something to you. And I ask you just to take a moment and feel into your body. How do you feel when you see the rose petals? Is there any particular memory, image, anything that might come up for you when you think about it, no matter how dumb or insignificant it might seem at the time, right? Again, symbology and symbols might not make sense in the moment. So don't limit yourself to what logically they might mean or how it might fit. You can even look at the image as a whole and feel into how does this make me feel, right? You could imagine if this is a cup of tea that I'm picking up and drinking, how would I feel about that? Am I like excited to grab this cup of tea? Like, am I like, ooh, I really want this tea. It looks delicious and amazing. Or are you like, this cup of tea is on fire and has like weird shit coming out of it? Like, whoa, like what is that about, right? What's your visceral response to the imagery that you're seeing? Does it feel comforting? Does it feel encouraging? Does it feel adventurous, right? Like, how do you feel when you put yourself in the card, when you put yourself in the imagery, or when you pull the imagery from the card into your physical life, right? How does a cup of tea make you feel? Is it comforting? Does it remind you of something? Does it bring a particular memory? Or does it bring a particular ritual or place, right? Like maybe are you I drink my coffee and have this lovely, beautiful ritual every morning, but lately I've been feeling really rushed and I haven't made time and space for myself for this ritual. For that example, maybe this is saying that, oh yeah, it's a reminder. This is a beautiful ritual for me and it's really nourishing, right? So these are just different examples. So one is connect to the very first thing that draws your attention. 2, without judging yourself, really feel into what that, whether it's a dream or whether it's a memory, whether it's an image that pops into your mind, whether it's a sound, whether you remember a song that you like or don't like, let whatever comes to mind come to mind. Don't try to make sense of it. Just let that thing come to mind. And if you're still stuck, play with the image as if you were actually putting yourself in the card. Like this is a cup, but maybe there's a person. What happens if you are the person in the card, right? What happens if you pull yourself into the situation? How do you feel? Do you feel good? Do you feel comforted? Are you scared? Do you feel invigorated? Do you feel tired? Like, how are you feeling with interacting with this image? Or can you pull the image out into your life? So those are the things that I actually want you to tap into before even reading the description, and write those things down. Particularly if you're a journaler, write those things down. You might find, I am a kind of an automatic writer, kind of intuitive person. So for me, writing is a really wonderful practice for intuitive development. This may or may not be you, but if you are one of those people, start writing and see what comes through. You might write more. You might go into a direction. So you might start with the rose petals, and you might go in a completely different direction that you originally thought. Or as you were writing, you can even start writing and just describe the card, starting with the things that are most drawing your attention, right? For me, in that case, it's the number, the star card, the roses. Describe the image of the card. Describe how you feel when you look at it, right? Like, it doesn't have to be really complicated, right? You can't do this wrong, okay? So start with that. And as you do, see what else comes up. See what memories comes up. See what images comes up. Just let yourself write that down, whatever it is. Just write down the things. Then, and only then, once you have finished kind of exhausting all of the explorations of what's your relationship with this card, then look it up, right? So in this particular deck, and also read the whole deck, not just the thing, but read, like, for example, with this deck is set up in a particular way where each part of the deck, you guys can't see that anyway, it's all like, anyway, each part of the deck is related to a particular element, right? So it's organized by earth, water, fire, then love, then sound, light, and thought, which is why it's called the Oracle of Seven Energies. And she actually, what's helpful is she actually writes a little piece around what earth means, what water means. So, for example, this particular one, the Oracle's Gift, number 37, is in the light category, and that's on page 108. So let's see, we have, so first what I do is I actually read, there's a part at the beginning where she just talks about what energy 6 light is. So light is intuition, vision, imagination, prescience, knowing, perception, and mental states, right? So that might be helpful to you for your question. And again, remember, our question was about the audience of this series. So interestingly enough, we are looking at intuition, vision, imagination. So this entire series, hopefully you are out there with me wanting to develop more of your imagination, creativity, intuitive gifts. Maybe that's you. Maybe that makes sense. And then I'll read the actual little reading in the book, the Oracle's Gift. The way that she has it laid out, there's key concepts, and then there's like a description. I'm just going to read out the key concepts just to keep this succinct. So key concepts are second sight, clairvoyance, seeing the future, fate as a future determined by choices you make now, seeing the signs around you, recognizing potentials versus absolute determinism, right? So that's just an additional layer. All of these are just layers of information to answer and give feedback for our original question, right? If I was asking more of a yes or no question or clarity around a situation, which I didn't, right? we can use some of that information to reflect, how is that pertinent to the original question that I've asked, right? So anyway, I hope this is helpful. Let me know if you work with this. Again, this is something that you can do on a daily basis. You can do it card of the week. You can do it card of the day, depending on how much time you have. But if it's something you're wanting to kind of develop, and if you're wanting to particular kind of get away from the prescriptive descriptions in the card or in the book, this is a great way to start. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this. Hope you found it helpful, and we'll see you in the next one. Yeah.